February this year, a guy called Zen issued a challenge known as 256 Fest. This is a simple challenge to create a 3D model or set with 256 polygons or less. There is an optional rule using a texture resolution of 256 by 256 too. Others have even tried modeling with a limit of 256 triangles or even tried animating it. This challenge is like a homage to the graphics used by early 3D softwares and to being once again grateful of the evolution of computer to allow the rendering of so many polygons. Why did I say all of this? First, to spread the awareness of this interesting challenge and to tell you that I participated in it. Here is my model. As you can see, the model I submitted is the Mimikyu Pokemon. Mimikyu is one of my favorite Pokemon as he has a relatable backstory and is overall very cute and huggable. Enough of that, let's move on. So I begin by adding and modifying a cylinder. I drew some concepts beforehand and the initial stages of the modeling was very symmetrical all the way around. This allowed me to use the cylinder as the foundation of the entire model. When adding the details, I referred online as my drawings were sketchy and unrefined. Soon, I thought to myself that since this is a personal project, I should take some creative liberties and adapt the Mimikyu to my own art style. I dug up an old image I drew of him and started using that as my reference instead. Changes included better definition of his head and shrinking of the body. Throughout the process, I was constantly thinking of ways to reduce the poly count. Methods include simplifying all the wrinkles in my original drawing and sharpening all the ends. Thinking ahead, I dedicated 2 polygons for the eyes. This will make it easier for me to isolate them and animate later. Next, I had to UV unwrap the model. At first, I tried to straighten and align the UV edges, similar to Guilty Gear's method of texturing. However, I later on decided against it and went for a good old-fashioned UV unwrap. This is because I decided to go for a pixelated look and the distortion of each polygon's face due to my modeling skills has caused the texture to distort severely if I use the straightened UVs. Following this, I began to think of ways of coloring the model. The yellow you see now was simply a placeholder and that will change to a duller shade in the final version. Off screen, I experimented with different pixel art designs for the face and settled on one that I felt comfortable with. I am quite proud of this pixel art. Before moving on, I decided to take a quick detour and light up my model. Here, I was checking to see if my materials and textures were done correctly. It would be sad if I continued to work on the model only for it not to be seen in the final render. With that out of the way, I started research on how to animate 2D facial expressions. There are several methods and I believe that I went for the hardest one. My decision was based on the one that gave me the lowest poly count. So what I did was draw a second set of eyes on the same texture image and then proceeded to keyframe the UV image so that the eyes blink. After the face was settled, I proceeded to position the bones of the model. I know that I wanted a very simple idle animation as I believe that the low poly count will not bend nicely if I push it. Hence, I gave it the bare minimum number of bones. I immediately parented the bones to the mesh and used the automated weight paint, only using the weight brush to adjust the errors that may have appeared. I used to give 100% of weight of each vertex to their respective bones, but I later learned that having a small amount of weight on other bones would make the bends more believable. Finally, the model was rigged and ready for action. Here, I started to animate the rig by setting down the key poses. Then, I offsetted the movements of each joint and played with the curves until I get what you see in the final product. This is a rather quick process since it was an idle animation. The final result of the model is a triangle count of 236. I only used half of the 256 by 256 texture grid and decided to animate the model. Overall, this is a very fun and interesting challenge, very similar to the game jams I have seen on YouTube. If it were not for the IRL duties, I would definitely have wanted to spend more time working on it to enable it to do like a jumping animation. Nonetheless, I enjoyed the challenge and may do a few more before the end of the year. If you want to participate, you do not need to animate, but I did it so it looks cooler. You can use any 3D software as long as you obey the poly count. You can refer to the many submissions online and learn the unique ways each participant adopted to create similar models. The most difficult part of this challenge is trying to observe the poly count while still enabling it to move if you plan on animating it. Fortunately, there are a lot of submissions with solutions to these issues. I have nothing else to say, and have a wonderful day.